Okay, so there's nothing that drives people crazy more than Jewish people buying land in Eretz Israel. And that was the protest yesterday, big protest, and today there's one also in Queens, if anybody wants to join. It drives them totally crazy, people buying land in Eretz Israel. So let's see what's the halacha. Are we supposed to buy land in Eretz Israel? We're not supposed to buy land in Eretz Israel. Let's start with the basics. Basic is the Ramban. The famous Ramban is the first one that really speaks about it, spells it out for us in a very, very well. And he says the following. This is in Parashat Mas'eh. He says, "Ve'orashtem et haaretz v'yishavtem ba." That's what the pasuk says over there. "Ki lachem natati et haaretz areshet ota." What does it mean? You should possess the land and you should settle it, because that's the land that I gave you. I gave you as inheritance. Says the Ramban, al da'ati zo mitzvat aseh. This is a positive commandment. יצווה אותם שישבו בארץ וירשו אותה כי הוא נתנה להם ולא ינסו בנחלת השם. One is not allowed to reject what Hashem gave us as a gift. It's a mitzvah, it's a commandment to settle the land. ואילו יעלו על דעתם ללכת לכבוש ארץ שנעה או ארץ אשור וזולתם להתיישב שם, יעברו על מצוות השם. If you think of settling in a different land, to conquer a different land, like Uganda, like they offered Herzl in 1905, the Britons offered him Uganda. Go settle that land, all the Jewish people can have a good time over there, nobody would bother you. That's over al mitzvah taseh. You're violating the mitzvah. The Ramban continues and says, this is in mitzvot taseh that he claims that the Rambam didn't mention. So he completes what he thinks that the Rambam should have said, should have counted. One of them is, again, to conquer the land, to settle it. He says, "He shenitzavenu lareshet haaretz asher natan, ha'el yitbarach v'yitalel la'avotenu, la'Avraham, Yitzchak, le'Yaakov." He gave us that land, and we have to settle it. We have to conquer it and settle it. "V'lo na'azvena be'yad zulatenu min ha'omot u'lishmama." We are not permitted to leave it for other nations or to leave it empty, unsettled. "V'hu omro, ve'orashtem et haaretz v'yishavtem ba," and so on. "V'yitnachaltem et haaretz," another pasuk. You should settle the land. Asher nishbati la'avotechem. This is the land that I gave your forefathers. And piret ota lahem b'mitzvot הזאת כולה בגבוליה ומצריה. הקדוש ברוך הוא in the Torah bordered the land. He said from where to where is the land that belongs to us. He gave it to us. כמו שאמר, ובאו הר האמורי אל כל שכניו בערבה, בהר ובשפלה, בנגב ובחוף הים. This is all your land. שלא יניחו מקום ממנה מקום. You're not allowed to leave any of those places unsettled. And he continues on and on. Who argues on this? The Sefer Megillat Esther. Megillat Esther is a perush on the Rambam, and he wants to say that why the Rambam didn't mention this mitzvah of settling the land. He says in Megillat Esther that's because the Rambam didn't hold that, according to his understanding, the Rambam didn't hold of the mitzvah of settling the land because the mitzvah is only at the time that Beit HaMikdash is built. But after the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, there's no such mitzvah anymore. That's what he says. I'm reading. נראה לי כי מה שלא מנעה הרמב"ם, הרב, ולפי שמצוות ירושת הארץ לא נהגה אלא רק בימי משה ויהושע ודוד, וכל זמן שלא גלו מארצם, as long as they didn't exile from the land. אבל אחר שגלו מעל ארצם, once עם ישראל were exiled, they left the land, אין מצווה זו נוהגת לדורות עד בוא המשיח. This mitzvah would not take place until Mashiach would come. And he is the one that mentions what those that fight the Neturei Karta, that's screaming and screaming, that's what he mentions over there, the mitzvah in Ketuvot Kuf Yud Aleph, that there's a Yisur to conquer the land. The Yisur is the Shvuah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made to Am Yisrael, made us swear, and that is שלא יעלו בחומה, שלא יתגרו באומות, השבעתי אתכם בנות ירושלים. It says 3 times, השבעתי אתכם בנות ירושלים in שיר השירים. So those are the 3 Shavuot. One of the Shavuot is שלא יעלו בחומה. Rashi says everybody together forcefully take it. Now there's a lot of answers to that claim, but we're not going into that today. We just want to see what's the halacha and what we should do. So Davnei Nezer writes that most of the poskim, actually all of the poskim, go along with the Ramban. The Avnei Nezer is in Yoreh De'at Taf Nun Hey. He says that most of the poskim follow the Ramban and not the Megillat Esther. The truth is that you never hear of Megillat Esther. It's a perush on the Rambam. You never hear psakim from the Megillat Esther anywhere. But the Ramban is thousands and tens of thousands of psakim everywhere that's scattered throughout the Shulchan Aruch and other places. So the Ramban is obviously the posek that we need to follow. And the Nezer again says that most of the poskim, almost all of them, follow what the Ramban says. There are few that also agree that there's no mitzvah today. But there's no question that the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Israel, whether it is coming as a group together and conquering the land, that is what they claim, that maybe it's Aliyah B'Choma, maybe that's not permitted. Again, there's a lot of answers to that, and it's not a discussion for now, maybe for a different time. But to go individually and to Eretz Israel, to make a Aliyah or to buy a land over there, there's no question that that's a mitzvah. According to everybody, there's no mitzvah. The Tosfot in Ketubot says that there's no mitzvah today to be in Eretz Israel because it's very hard to be mekayem the mitzvot of Trumot and Maasrot. But again, the poskim say that the Tosfot was rejected by almost all the Rishonim and Achronim. They don't follow this. This is Rav Chaim in Tosfot, very much known. It's not la halacha. So therefore, there is a mitzvah to settle Eretz Israel. The Gemara in Gittin, Chet Amud Bet and Bava Kama Pei Amud Bet say that there is a mitzvah to buy a land in Eretz Israel. So much so, the Gemara says over there, Lokeach Bait be'Eretz Israel. If you have a chance to buy land, to buy a house, to buy a property in Eretz Israel, Kotvim alav ono afilu b'Shabbat. You can write the deed, you can write the tabu, the land. You can write the papers, the documents, even on Shabbat. Al yadei nochri, not to yourself, through a goy, which means you bring a lawyer, and normally you're not allowed to do that. Why? Amira legoy shvutu. Over here it's permitted, mishum mishuv Eretz Yisrael, lo gazru berabanan. What does it mean? Normally, in order to ask a goy to do for you something, you need to have two things. Three things actually. Two things is shvut, the shvut, what we call, two the Rabbanan. One is the goy. When a goy does for you something, it's the Rabbanan. Secondly, is only permitted to do for us something that is the Rabbanan. You're not allowed to tell him on Shabbat to cook for you because that's the Oraita. You're not allowed to tell him to write for you. It's the Oraita. What are you allowed to ask him to do? Things that are the Rabbanan. Take a muktzeh. That's only with an extra condition that it should be either ledvar mitzvah, for the purpose of mitzvah, tzorech gadol, somebody sick, something that is a real need. But to just want the Rabbanan, ask a goy to write for you the deed, that you're not allowed to do because writing is the oraita, is melechet kotev. Melechet kotev is the oraita. So over here is an exception, since it's such a great mitzvah, settle Eretz Israel. Chachamim permitted to tell a goy, they uplifted their restriction of shvut to ask a goy to do for you things on Shabbat, and they said it's permitted to ask a goy to do for you the oraita. Normally, again, it's not permitted unless you have two derabanan and a mitzvah. Over here, it's a mitzvah indeed, but there's only one derabanan because the goy is doing for you melachat deoraita. Still, Chachamim said it is permitted, and this is how it was nifsak la'alacha in Shulchan Aruch Shin Vav. Seif Yud Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch says, Mutar liknot bait be'eretz Yisrael minahenu Yehudi b'Shabbat v'chotem u'ma'aleh b'arkaot. You're allowed to buy the land from the goy on Shabbat, and you're allowed to have him sign, bring a lawyer, a goy lawyer, he signs for you, he goes to court, and he finishes the whole thing on Shabbat Kodesh. So much so. The Kaf HaChaim says a little bit more. He says that Chatzer shel Eretz Yisrael be'eretz HaKdosha shaya charev v'shamem. You had a land that it was empty, and you want to build it. So you convince the people that are in charge, whether it is the governor or whoever's in charge, you gave him money, you paid him off, and finally he permitted you to do it. You're allowed to bring workers. Mutar le'achnis po'alim la'asot melacha afilu b'Shabbat. You're allowed to bring workers to work for you on Shabbat. Normally the halacha is that if you build a house on Shabbat, through a goy, if you have a contractor that comes to work for you and he wants to work also on Shabbat, the Shulchan Aruch brings you're not allowed to live in that house. This house becomes forbidden. That is the halacha. You're not allowed to live in a house that the goy worked on it on Shabbat. But over here in Eretz Israel, since they might back up, says the Kaf HaChaim, maybe the governor would back up and tell you know what, I changed my mind. Don't do it don't build the place. Don't settle the land. Therefore, you're allowed to ask the goy to work for you also on Shabbat. It's an amazing thing. The Marcheshet brings down an extra condition. He says that the mitzvah of settling the land, ve'arashtem ota ve'yashavtem ba, is done only with two things. You need to buy land and you need to live in the house. You need to live in that land, which means like this. If you just live in America and you're buying land in Eretz Israel and you continue living here, you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of the Torah. Virashtem ota, vishavtem ba. You're not fulfilling the mitzvah. You need to actually do aliyah and live there in order to fulfill it. He says also that it's not enough if you live in Eretz Israel, you go, you do aliyah. Wonderful. It's a great, great thing. But just doing aliyah and you're not purchasing a land, you say, you know what, I'm going to rent. I don't want to purchase a land. I'm going to rent, I'm good. So he says you're not fulfilling the mitzvah. The mitzvah is virashtem ota. You have to settle the land. You have to sit in it and conquer it and acquire it and buy the land and have a part of Eretz Israel. Avnei Nezer argues on that. He says that there is a mitzvah even if you don't live in Eretz Israel. There is a mitzvah, and he says, Al ken raui meod lishtadel ba. You have to try very much to have that mitzvah, even if you don't live in Eretz Israel. You continue living in America, and you're just buying land in Eretz Israel, you fulfill this great, great mitzvah. Again, it's a great mitzvah. You're allowed to violate Shabbat to fulfill that mitzvah. Where do you find such a thing? It's a great thing. It says like this in Avnei Nezer. I'm reading again. It's in Yoreh De'at Taf Nun Hey. He has a whole section over there on mitzvah Yeshuv Eretz Israel, and he says liknot nachala be'Eretz Israel hu davar gadol. It's a great mitzvah. It's a great thing to buy land in Eretz Israel. Bifrat liot lo mizeh parnasa, especially if you're gonna have parnasa in Eretz Israel, you'll have a living in there. אף אם יושב בחוץ לארץ, נחשב קצת ישיבה בארץ ישראל, which means, even though you're not doing aliyah, you're not going to live in Eretz Israel, you're staying in חוץ לארץ, still, that is considered a mitzvah. It's less of a mitzvah, obviously, it's more of a mitzvah to go to live in Eretz Israel as well. But even that way, that you're still sitting in Chutz La'aretz and you're buying land in Eretz Israel, is still a mitzvah. And it says, Al ken raui meod lit'ametz bazeh. One should definitely try very much to do that mitzvah. So again, to summarize, we have to we follow what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us in the Torah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us in the Torah that one of the 613 mitzvot, according to Ramban, would be to settle the land. The Rambam didn't mention it. Why not? Megillat Esther says because the Rambam didn't hold of it. It's only at the time that Am Yisrael were in Eretz Israel, and Beit HaMikdash was built, or in the time of Moshe, Aaron, in the time of David or Shlomo, but not now after Am Yisrael went to exile. Others want to answer the Rambam. In Emma Banim Semechai says that the Rambam didn't mention the mitzvah of settling Eretz Israel, Yishuv Eretz Israel, is because it's a mitzvah klalit. The Rambam has klalim. He has rules that he tells us before he starts his sefer, mitzvot. And he tells us one of the rules that I won't mention anything that a mitzvah klalit. It's a general mitzvah, which means a mitzvah that includes in it many other mitzvot. So living in Eretz Israel, that's a mitzvah klalit, which involves in it many other mitzvot. Many mitzvot of the Torah are mitzvot atluyot ba'aretz, that you can do only in Eretz Israel. It's mitzvot atluyot ba'aretz. Therefore, living in Eretz Israel, that's a mitzvah klali. That includes all of those other mitzvot that are in detail. So the Rambam mentions all the details of the mitzvot atluyot ba'aretz. Obviously, that general mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael, conquering, settling, and being in Eretz Yisrael, which is a general mitzvah, that would be included in that.